What happens when humanity's greatest weapon isn't technology, magic, or superior firepower, but something far more terrifying to alien invaders? What happens when they discover that humans don't just fight wars, they survive them, learn from them, and come home changed in ways that make playground bullies seem like children playing with toys? Marcus Chen thought the hardest part was over. He'd survived 3 years of brutal combat against the Zephyrian Empire, watched entire star systems burn, and learned that humans had something no other species in the galaxy possessed: the ability to adapt, endure, and emerge stronger from trauma. He'd earned his stripes in the Outer Rim conflicts, where human tenacity had turned the tide against technologically superior foes. But now, at 17, he faces his greatest challenge yet: returning to Jefferson High School. The aliens never understood why humans were so feared across the galaxy. They never realized that every human carries within them the echoes of 10,000 generations of survivors, warriors, and dreamers who refuse to give up. They never learned that humans don't just win wars, they come home and face whatever awaits them with the same relentless determination that conquered the stars. This is the story of what happens when a battle-hardened veteran discovers that the real war was waiting for him in the halls of his old high school. This is the story of why humanity doesn't just survive, we thrive. And this is the story of why bullies, whether they come from Earth or the far reaches of space, should never underestimate the quiet kid who just came home from war. The shuttle's descent through Earth's atmosphere felt different than Marcus remembered. 3 years ago, when he'd left this same planet as a 14-year-old volunteer for the Colonial Defense Initiative, the blue marble below had seemed vast and mysterious. Now, after countless drops onto hostile worlds where the sky burned purple and the gravity tried to crush human bones, Earth felt small. Familiar. Safe. Marcus Chen pressed his face against the viewport, watching the sprawling cityscape of Neo Sacramento grow larger beneath them. His reflection stared back, still 17, technically, though the time dilation effects of faster-than-light travel had made his 3 years of service feel like a lifetime. The scar running from his left temple to his jaw, courtesy of Zephyrian plasma fire, had healed well. The medics had offered to remove it entirely, but Marcus had declined. Some things were worth remembering. First time back home, soldier, asked the shuttle pilot, a grizzled veteran named Rodriguez who'd been flying transport runs for the better part of 2 decades. His cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Marcus through the cockpit doorway. "Yes, sir," Marcus replied, unconsciously straightening in his seat. Old habits died hard. Rodriguez chuckled. "Relax, kid. You're not in the service anymore. Hell, most of the people down there don't even know there's a war going on. The news feeds keep it sanitized, minor conflicts in the Outer Rim, they call it. They don't show the footage of Kepler 442b after the Zephyrians glassed it." Marcus nodded, remembering. He'd been there when the evacuation ships had lifted off, packed beyond capacity with human refugees. He'd stayed behind with the rear guard, holding the line while civilians escaped. The Zephyrians had superior technology, better ships, weapons that could slice through human battle armor like paper. But they'd never learned to account for human stubbornness. The shuttle touched down at Sacramento Spaceport with barely a tremor, Rodriguez's skill evident in the smooth landing. Marcus gathered his single duffel bag, everything he owned in the galaxy, and made his way to the exit. The artificial gravity felt perfect after months aboard various military vessels where the grav generators never quite got Earth normal right. The spaceport bustled with activity, but it was civilian activity. Families greeting returning business travelers, cargo haulers moving goods, teenagers his age laughing and playing games on their neural interfaces. Normal life. Peaceful life. Marcus found it almost overwhelming after 3 years where every moment could bring sudden, violent death. Marcus? Marcus Chen? He turned to see a woman approaching, her face familiar but aged in ways that made his heart clench. His mother, Dr. Lisa Chen, chief of neurology at UC Davis Medical Center. She'd been 38 when he'd left. Now she looked closer to 45, stress lines marking her features, gray threading through her black hair. "Mom," he said, and suddenly, he was 14 again, uncertain and small. She wrapped him in a hug that smelled like antiseptic and the jasmine perfume she'd always worn. For a moment, Marcus let himself relax into the embrace, feeling something inside his chest unlock for the first time in years. "Look at you," she whispered, pulling back to study his face. Her fingers traced the edge of his scar with a surgeon's gentle precision. My baby boy. I'm not a baby anymore, Mom. No, she agreed sadly. I can see that. The ride home through familiar streets felt like touring a museum of his childhood. The corner store where he'd bought candy with his allowance. The park where he'd learned to ride a bike. The school, Jefferson High School, where he'd been miserable. Marcus forced his attention back to his mother, who was updating him on 3 years' worth of family news. His father, Dr. James Chen, was still teaching advanced physics at UC Davis, still working on his pet theories about quantum consciousness. His younger sister Amy was now 14, the same age Marcus had been when he'd left for war. She's excited to see you, his mother was saying. Though she's also nervous. She was just a little girl when you left, and, now she's the age I was when I joined up, Marcus finished. His mother's hands tightened on the steering wheel. That terrifies me, Marcus. Every day I wonder if she'll decide to follow in your footsteps. The war won't last forever, Mom. We're winning. Are you? She glanced at him, and Marcus saw something in her eyes he didn't recognize. Fear, yes, but also pride? The news doesn't tell us much, but there are rumors. Stories about human units accomplishing impossible missions, turning the tide against superior forces. They're starting to call us something in the alien communities. What? The Persistence. Like it's some kind of title. Marcus nodded slowly. He'd heard the term before, whispered among Zephyrian prisoners. In their language, it carried connotations of implacability, of something that couldn't be stopped or reasoned with. It was, Marcus knew, both accurate and incomplete. Humans didn't just persist, they adapted, learned, grew stronger from each defeat. The Chen family home looked exactly as Marcus remembered it, a modest 2-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The same flowering cherry tree in the front yard that he'd climbed as a child. The same blue paint on the shutters that his father touched up every spring. The same sense of peace and safety that had once felt like a prison. Amy met them at the door, and Marcus barely recognized her. The chubby-cheeked 11-year-old he remembered had grown into a tall, serious teenager with their mother's intelligent eyes and their father's stubborn chin. She studied him for a long moment before speaking. You look different, she said finally. So do you. I grew up. What's your excuse? Marcus laughed, surprising himself. Same, I guess. Dinner was a careful dance around the elephant in the room. His parents asked safe questions about military life, the food, the training, the different worlds he'd seen. Amy peppered him with technical questions about spacecraft and alien technology. No one asked about combat. No one asked about the scar. No one asked about the way Marcus's eyes constantly tracked movement, cataloging exits and potential threats in his own family's dining room. After dinner, Marcus retreated to his old bedroom, which his parents had preserved exactly as he'd left it. Posters of ancient Earth musicians on the walls, shelves lined with physical books, a desk still scattered with homework he'd never finished. It felt like a tomb, a monument to the boy who'd died on a dozen different battlefields. His neural interface chimed with an incoming message. Marcus activated the privacy screen and opened the communication. Shun. You beautiful bastard, how's civilian life treating you? The holographic image that appeared was Sergeant Maria Santos, Marcus's squad leader for the last 18 months of his service. She was currently aboard the UNS Tenacity somewhere in the Vega system, still fighting the good fight. Weird, Marcus admitted. Really weird. Everything's so normal. Santos laughed. Yeah, that'll take some getting used to. Listen, I've got news. Command approved your commendation. The Silver Star, with Oak Leaf Cluster. Ceremonies next month if you want to attend via Holo. Marcus thought about it. The Silver Star was a significant honor, recognition for his actions during the Battle of Proxima Station. But the thought of reliving those memories, even for a ceremony. I'll think about it, he said. Fair enough. Oh, and, Chen? Word of advice from someone who's been there. Don't try to be who you were before. That kid's gone, and that's okay. Figure out who you are now. The connection ended, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts and the ghosts of his past. Tomorrow, he would return to Jefferson High School to complete his senior year. Tomorrow, he would face the bullies who had made his life hell before he'd left for the stars. Tomorrow, they would learn what 3 years of war had taught him. Marcus opened his duffel bag and carefully removed the few possessions he'd brought home from the war. A plasma rifle power cell, drained but kept as a reminder. A piece of shrapnel from the hull of his first ship, the UNS Determination. A photograph of his unit, most of whom were now dead. And, finally, a small device that most civilians would never recognize, a quantum entanglement communicator, military grade, capable of instantaneous communication across any distance. Technically, he should have returned it with the rest of his equipment. Practically, many veterans kept them. The ability to reach out to fellow survivors was too valuable to give up. Marcus activated the device and scrolled through the contact list. Hundreds of names, fellow veterans scattered across human space. Some were still active duty. Others, like him, were trying to readjust to civilian life. All of them understood what he was going through in ways that his family, despite their love, never could. He found the name he was looking for, Lieutenant David Kim, a fellow veteran who'd returned to Earth 6 months ago. Marcus? Christ, good to hear from you. How's the homecoming? Complicated. You? Same. Listen, I should warn you about something. Going back to school, it's not what you expect. These kids, they're not like us anymore. They're not bad kids, just different. And the bullies. What about them? David's sigh came through clearly across the quantum link. They're still bullies, man. They haven't learned what we've learned. Haven't seen what we've seen. They think the same tactics that worked on scared 14-year-olds will work on combat veterans. They won't. No, they definitely won't. Just be careful how you handle it. The last thing any of us need is an incident. Marcus understood. Veterans were closely watched when they returned to civilian life. Too many stories of soldiers who couldn't readjust, who brought the war home with them in destructive ways. The monitoring was subtle but constant, psychological evaluations, social workers, careful observation by school administrators. I'll be careful, Marcus promised. Good. And, Marcus? Remember what Santos used to say. We're not just humans anymore. We're human veterans. That means something. The connection ended, and Marcus lay back on his childhood bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, for the first time in 3 years, he was safe. He was home. And he was no longer the frightened boy who'd left this room looking for purpose in the stars. Outside, the sounds of suburban nights settled over the neighborhood. No explosions. No plasma fire. No screams of wounded soldiers. Just the gentle hum of air recyclers and the distant sound of his father working late in his study. Marcus Chen, veteran of the Outer Rim conflicts, survivor of a dozen campaigns against the Zephyrian Empire, closed his eyes and tried to remember how to sleep without one hand on a weapon. Tomorrow, he would discover that some battles were just beginning. The first thing that struck Marcus about Jefferson High School was how small it seemed. Not just physically, though that was part of it, the hallways that had once felt like endless corridors now seemed narrow and cramped. It was the scale of everything that felt diminished. The problems that had once loomed so large in his 14-year-old mind now appeared trivial, manageable, almost quaint. Principal Watson's office looked exactly the same, down to the motivational posters about reaching for the stars and unlocking your potential. Marcus found the irony darkly amusing. He'd literally reached for the stars and found them full of hostile aliens trying to kill him. Marcus Chen, Principal Watson said, reviewing his file on her tablet. She was a thin woman in her 50s, efficient and no-nonsense. I have to say, your situation is unusual. We've had military families transfer in before, but never a student returning from active duty. I understand there might be some adjustments, Marcus replied carefully. Indeed. Your academic credits from the military education program transfer cleanly, so you'll be joining the senior class. However, there are some considerations. She looked up from her tablet. Your psychological evaluation flagged some concerns about social reintegration. The counselor wants to meet with you weekly. Marcus nodded. He'd expected as much. The military didn't just release child soldiers back into civilian life without safeguards, even voluntary ones like himself. There's also the matter of your classmates, Principal Watson continued. Most of them knew you before you left. There may be reactions. What kind of reactions? Some will treat you as a hero. Others may be uncomfortable around you. And some. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Some may see you as a challenge. Marcus understood. The bullies who had tormented him before would want to re-establish their dominance, to prove that his military service hadn't really changed anything. They would be wrong, but Marcus suspected they wouldn't realize that until it was too late. I'll be fine, Principal Watson. I'm just here to finish school and move on with my life. She studied him for a long moment. You're not the same boy who left here 3 years ago. No, ma'am. I'm not. I hope that's a good thing. Marcus's first class was advanced physics, taught by Dr. Reynolds, an elderly professor who'd been teaching at Jefferson for longer than Marcus had been alive. The classroom fell silent when Marcus entered, 30 pairs of eyes tracking his movement as he found an empty seat in the back. He recognized some of the faces from middle school, though they'd all changed. Sarah Mitchell, who'd been in his science club, now looked polished and confident. Tommy Zhao, who'd shared his love of old science fiction novels, had grown tall and lean. And there, near the front of the class, sat Derek Vance. Derek had been Marcus's primary tormentor before he'd left for military service. Bigger, stronger, and meaner than most kids their age, Derek had made Marcus's life miserable through 8th grade and into their freshman year. Now Derek was a massive 6'3" senior, captain of the football team, and, from the way other students deferred to him, still the school's alpha predator. Dr. Reynolds began his lecture on quantum mechanics, and Marcus found himself only half listening. The concepts being discussed were elementary compared to the quantum engineering coursework he'd completed during military service. Instead, he found himself studying the social dynamics of the classroom, cataloging potential threats and allies with the same intensity he'd once used to assess alien battlefields. Derek kept glancing back at him, and Marcus could read the calculation in the bigger boy's eyes. Recognition. Assessment. Challenge. Derek was trying to decide how to handle Marcus's return, whether to ignore him, mock him, or reassert his dominance through more direct means. When the bell rang, Marcus gathered his things and headed for the door. He almost made it out before Derek intercepted him. Well. Look who decided to come crawling back, Derek said, blocking Marcus's path. Several other students stopped to watch, sensing drama. I heard you ran off to play soldier boy. How'd that work out for you? Marcus looked up at Derek, still had to look up, despite his own growth, and felt a strange calm settle over him. This was familiar territory, just with different stakes. Instead of life and death, it was just high school politics. It worked out fine, Derek. Excuse me, I need to get to my next class. Oh, I don't think so. Derek's hand landed heavily on Marcus's shoulder, fingers digging in with practiced cruelty. See, some of us never forgot what a little freak you were. Just because you got yourself a fancy uniform doesn't mean anything's changed. The pressure on Marcus's shoulder was meant to be intimidating, painful. Derek had no way of knowing that Marcus had endured interrogation by Zephyrian pain specialists, that his neural conditioning had taught him to function through agony that would incapacitate most humans. The grip felt like nothing more than a gentle pat. Let go of me, Derek, Marcus said quietly. Or what? You'll cry to your mommy like you used to? Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. Not anger, anger was too hot, too chaotic for what he'd become. This was something else. Calculation. Assessment. The same mental state that had kept him alive during the siege of New Geneva. Derek, he said, voice still quiet but carrying a tone that made several nearby students step back unconsciously. This is your only warning. Let go of me and walk away. Derek laughed, but there was uncertainty in it. Listen to this tough guy act. You think I'm scared of? Marcus moved. Not fast enough to cause serious injury, but fast enough to make his point. His left hand trapped Derek's wrist against his shoulder while his right drove upward in a short, precise strike to Derek's solar plexus. Derek folded, gasping, and Marcus stepped smoothly aside as the bigger boy stumbled forward. You should probably work on your breathing, Marcus said conversationally. Proper breath control is essential in any physical confrontation. Derek straightened slowly, his face red with embarrassment and lack of oxygen. You little Mr. Vance. Mr. Shun. Principal Watson's voice cut through the hallway like a whip crack. She approached with the rapid stride of someone accustomed to breaking up student conflicts. Fighting on the first day back, Mr. Chen? I'm disappointed. Actually, Principal Watson, I was just helping Derek with his posture, Marcus said. He seemed to be having some balance issues. Several students snickered at that, and Derek's face grew redder. Principal Watson looked between them, clearly recognizing the aftermath of a conflict but unable to prove what had happened. Mr. Vance, don't you have practice to get to? And, Mr. Chen, I think you and I should have another chat. Derek stalked away, shooting venomous looks over his shoulder. Marcus followed Principal Watson back to her office, noting how other students watched him with new interest. Word would spread quickly, the quiet kid who'd gone to war had just handled Derek Vance like it was nothing. Want to tell me what really happened out there? Principal Watson asked once they were seated. Derek put his hand on me without permission. I removed it. That's all? That's all. She studied him for a long moment. Mr. Chen, I understand you've been through experiences that most people can't imagine. But this is a high school, not a military installation. The rules here are different. I understand that, Principal Watson. But some rules are universal. Like the one about keeping your hands to yourself. Indeed. But I need you to understand something as well. Derek Vance may be a bully, but he's also a 17-year-old boy. You are a trained soldier. The power dynamic is not what it was when you left. Marcus nodded. She was right, of course. The boy who'd been victimized by Derek was gone, replaced by someone who'd learned to kill efficiently and without hesitation. But that wasn't who he wanted to be here, in this place that was supposed to be safe and normal. I'll be more careful, he promised. See that you are. And, Mr. Chen? Derek Vance isn't your real problem here. What do you mean? Derek is a known quantity. Predictable. But there are others who will see you as either a threat to be eliminated or a prize to be won. Not all of them will be as straightforward as Derek. Marcus spent the rest of the school day observing, learning the new social landscape of Jefferson High. 3 years had changed more than just his classmates' physical appearance. The student body had stratified into more rigid hierarchies, with clear divisions between the academic achievers, the athletes, the social media influencers, and the various subcultures. His presence created ripples through these established groups. Some students approached him with hero worship, wanting to hear war stories. Others kept their distance, uncertain how to relate to someone who'd experienced things beyond their comprehension. And a few, Marcus noted, watched him with calculation that reminded him uncomfortably of enemy intelligence officers. During lunch, he sat alone, content to observe while eating the surprisingly good cafeteria food. Compared to military rations, even mediocre civilian food tasted extraordinary. Mind if I sit? Marcus looked up to see a girl he didn't recognize. Asian features, short black hair, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She carried herself with quiet confidence and moved with the fluid grace of someone who'd had martial arts training. Free country, Marcus said. She sat down across from him. I'm Lisa Park. Transfer student from San Francisco. You're Marcus Chen, the famous returning warrior. Famous? Word travels fast in a small school. Derek Vance is telling everyone you sucker punched him, but... She shrugged. Derek's not exactly a reliable narrator. Mind if I ask what really happened? Marcus studied her. There was something about Lisa that set her apart from his other classmates. A stillness, a awareness of her surroundings that felt familiar. He put his hands on me. I asked him to stop. He didn't. I helped him understand. Ah. The universal language of applied physics. Something like that. What about you? What brings you to Jefferson High from the big city? My father got transferred. Military contractor. He works on specialized projects. The way she said it made Marcus's veteran instincts prickle. Specialized projects in the context of military contracting during wartime could mean any number of classified things. What kind of specialized projects? The kind he can't talk about. But I think you might have some experience with his work. She leaned forward slightly. Tell me, Marcus, what do you know about the Zephyrian neural interface technology our forces captured at Kepler 442b? Marcus went very still. The Battle of Kepler 442b was classified at the highest levels. The fact that this girl knew about captured Zephyrian technology meant either her father had an extremely high security clearance, or she was fishing for information she shouldn't possess. I know that's not the kind of thing high school students should be discussing, he said carefully. Lisa smiled, but there was no humor in it. No, I suppose it isn't. But then, again, most high school students haven't spent 3 years fighting aliens in the Outer Rim. What do you want? To talk. To someone who understands. Do you know how isolating it is, being surrounded by people who think the biggest problem in the universe is whether their social media post gets enough likes? Marcus understood that feeling intimately. But he also understood that Lisa Park represented a complication he hadn't anticipated. His first day back was supposed to be about reconnecting with normal life, not dealing with mysterious girls who knew classified information. Maybe we can talk more later, he said, standing. I should get to my next class. Of course. But, Marcus? Be careful who you trust here. Not everyone is who they appear to be. As Marcus walked away, he activated his neural interface and sent a priority message to his handler at Colonial Defense Intelligence. 3 years of military service had taught him many things, but perhaps the most important was this: when civilians started asking about classified operations, it was time to call for backup. The afternoon classes passed in a blur of familiar subjects taught at levels far below what Marcus had studied in military academies. But his mind wasn't on academics. It was on the growing realization that returning home was going to be far more complicated than he'd anticipated. Derek Vance was a bully, predictable and manageable. But Lisa Park represented something else entirely, a puzzle piece that didn't fit the picture he'd expected to find at Jefferson High. As the final bell rang and students flooded toward the exits, Marcus made a decision. Tomorrow, he would start asking questions of his own. Because 3 years of war had taught him that when you didn't understand the battlefield, you were already losing. And Marcus Chen, veteran of the Outer Rim conflicts, had not survived this long by losing. The response from Colonial Defense Intelligence came through Marcus's secure channel at 0300 hours, jolting him from a restless sleep filled with dreams of burning starships and Derek Vance's confused face. The message was brief and encrypted with military-grade quantum keys. Subject: Lisa Park. Father: Dr. Richard Park, Level 5 Clearance, Xenobiological Cognitive Systems Division. Assignment: Project Mirror, Zephyrian Neural Interface Reverse Engineering. Daughter cleared for limited information sharing due to unique psychological profile. Recommend cautious engagement. CDI 7739-inch Marcus stared at the message in the dim glow of his room's night lighting. Project Mirror was one of the most classified programs in human space, an attempt to understand and replicate the neural interface technology that gave Zephyrians their tactical advantages. The fact that a high school student had any knowledge of it, limited or not, suggested Lisa Park was far more than she appeared. He deleted the message and lay back down, but sleep wouldn't come. Outside his window, suburban Sacramento slept peacefully, unaware that humanity was fighting for its survival among distant stars. It was a strange dichotomy that Marcus was still learning to navigate, the disconnect between the urgent realities of war and the comfortable normalcy of civilian life. His neural interface chimed softly with an incoming call. Marcus recognized the quantum signature immediately. Having trouble sleeping, soldier? The holographic projection of Captain Elena Vasquez materialized in his room, her image slightly distorted by the civilian-grade equipment. Vasquez had been his company commander during the final months of his service, a career officer who'd taken Marcus under her wing after the debacle at Proxima Station. Captain. This is unexpected. Marcus, you're a civilian now. Elena is fine. She studied his face with the practiced eye of someone who'd led troops through hell. You look like shit. Civilian life treating you that well? It's complicated. Did CDI brief you on my query about Lisa Park? They did. And, Marcus, that's actually why I'm calling. Project Mirror isn't just about reverse engineering alien technology. It's about something much more important. Marcus sat up, suddenly, alert. Vasquez wouldn't contact him directly unless the matter was critical. What aren't they telling me? The Zephyrians aren't just technologically superior, Marcus. They're cognitively different. Their neural architecture processes information in ways that human brains simply can't match. They think faster, calculate probabilities instantly, coordinate through quantum-entangled neural networks. In a straight fight, they should have annihilated humanity in the first 6 months of contact. But, they didn't. No, they didn't. And, the reason why is something we're only beginning to understand. Humans have something the Zephyrians don't, something that makes us unpredictable, adaptive, dangerous in ways their calculations can't account for. Marcus thought about the battles he'd fought, the impossible victories that had earned humanity its reputation as the persistence. Human forces winning through sheer stubborn refusal to surrender, finding solutions that no rational analysis would suggest. What does this have to do with Lisa Park? Dr. Park's team has identified what makes humans different. They call it the chaos factor, a combination of creativity, irrationality, and adaptive thinking that emerges from neural patterns the Zephyrians consider defective. Lisa inherited an amplified version of those patterns. She's what they're calling a cognitive anomaly. Meaning? Meaning her brain works in ways that even we don't fully understand. She processes information like a quantum computer but maintains human creativity and intuition. She's potentially the most valuable asset humanity has developed since the war began. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. And she's sitting in my high school lunchroom asking about classified operations. Exactly. Which brings me to why I'm really calling. We need you to watch her, Marcus. Keep her safe. There are forces at work that would very much like to get their hands on Lisa Park, and not all of them are alien. The call ended, leaving Marcus alone with thoughts that were far too heavy for a high school senior. He'd come home expecting to deal with bullies and homework, not to serve as a bodyguard for a girl who might be humanity's secret weapon. When morning came, Marcus approached Jefferson High with new eyes. He cataloged potential threat vectors, escape routes, and defensive positions with the automatic efficiency of military training. The cheerful normalcy of suburban teenagers heading to class felt like a stage set, concealing darker realities. Lisa Park was waiting for him at his locker, reading a book that made Marcus's blood run cold. Advanced Quantum Consciousness Theory by Dr. Sarah Chen, his own mother's groundbreaking work on the intersection of quantum mechanics and neural architecture. Interesting choice, Marcus said carefully. Your mother is brilliant, Lisa replied without looking up. Her theories about quantum coherence and biological neural networks are the foundation for everything my father's team is working on. Marcus felt the pieces clicking into place. My mother doesn't know about Project Mirror. No. But her research made it possible. The irony is beautiful, really. The woman who could save humanity doesn't even know there's a war to be saved from. That's not irony. That's operational security. Lisa finally looked up from the book, and Marcus saw something in her eyes that reminded him of veteran soldiers, a depth of knowledge that came with a price. Do you ever wonder what it would be like to be normal, Marcus? To worry about normal things like grades and social status and whether someone likes you back? Before Marcus could answer, Derek Vance appeared with 3 of his football teammates in tow. The bullying pack formation was classic intimidation through numbers and physical presence. What Derek didn't realize was that Marcus had fought against alien assault formations designed by species with millions of years of evolutionary warfare experience. High school bullies were almost quaint by comparison. Well. If it isn't the war hero and the weird new girl, Derek said, positioning himself to block the hallway. I've been thinking about our little encounter yesterday, Chun. I think we need a rematch. I think we don't, Marcus replied evenly. See, that's where you're wrong. Because I've been asking around about you, and you know what I found out? You're not supposed to fight anymore. Something about psychological monitoring and civilian reintegration. Which means you're neutered, soldier boy. All that training, and you can't use any of it without getting in serious trouble. Derek was right, and he knew it. Veterans returning to civilian life were subject to strict oversight. Any violent incident would trigger immediate intervention from military psychological services. Marcus could handle Derek and his friends without breaking a sweat, but the consequences would end his normal life before it began. Interesting tactical assessment, Lisa said quietly. But flawed. Derek turned his attention to her, clearly frustrated by Marcus's lack of response. What did you say, freak? I said your assessment is flawed. You're assuming Marcus needs to fight you to neutralize your threat. But that's very linear thinking. Yeah. And what would you know about fighting? Lisa smiled, and Marcus saw something predatory in the expression. I know that you're standing in a public hallway, surrounded by witnesses, threatening a decorated war veteran and a girl who could have you expelled with a single phone call. You don't scare me. I should. Because unlike Marcus, I'm not bound by military codes of conduct. I'm just a high school student with a very particular set of skills and absolutely no compunction about using them. Something in Lisa's tone made Derek step back. Marcus found himself studying the girl with new interest. There had been training in her movements during lunch yesterday, and now there was something in her voice that suggested she was far more dangerous than she appeared. You're both freaks, Derek muttered, but he was backing down. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Lisa said. Because if you approach either of us again, I'll demonstrate some of the more practical applications of advanced neural psychology. Spoiler alert, they're not pleasant. Derek and his friends retreated, leaving Marcus and Lisa alone in the hallway. That was interesting, Marcus said. I told you yesterday that not everyone is who they appear to be. That includes me. What exactly are you, Lisa Park? I'm a 17-year-old girl who happens to understand how the human brain works at a quantum level. I'm someone who can predict human behavior with 93% accuracy. And I'm someone who's been waiting her entire life for a war hero to come home so I wouldn't have to face high school alone. Marcus felt something shift in his understanding of the situation. Lisa wasn't just a civilian asset to be protected, she was a fellow soldier in a different kind of war. You're lonely, he realized. Profoundly. Do you have any idea what it's like to be surrounded by people whose thoughts you can essentially read? To know exactly what they're going to say before they say it? To understand the biological and psychological basis for every petty cruelty and social manipulation? It sounds like a superpower. It's a curse. The only time I feel surprised, the only time I feel human, is when I'm around people who've experienced things beyond normal human parameters. Combat veterans. Astronauts. People who've been changed by extreme circumstances. They walked to class together, two damaged young people finding unexpected kinship in their shared isolation from normal teenage life. Marcus found himself relaxing around Lisa in ways he hadn't with his own family. She understood the weight of knowledge, the burden of capabilities that couldn't be shared or explained. During lunch, they sat together again, but this time the conversation was different. Lisa told him about growing up knowing she was different, about the government testing that had confirmed her abilities, about the loneliness of being the smartest person in every room but being unable to connect with anyone. Marcus shared stories from his service, not the classified operations, but the smaller moments. The camaraderie of shared hardship. The strange beauty of alien sunrises. The weight of responsibility that came with keeping humanity safe while the protected remained blissfully unaware of the threat. Do you think we'll win? Lisa asked. The war, I mean. I think we'll survive, Marcus replied. That's what humans do. We adapt. We endure. We find ways to keep going when any rational species would give up. The chaos factor. Is that what they're calling it now? Among other things. My father's team thinks it's the key to everything. Not just winning the war, but evolving beyond it. Becoming something new. Marcus thought about that as the afternoon classes dragged by. The idea that humanity was evolving through conflict, becoming something greater through the crucible of interstellar war, was both inspiring and terrifying. After school, as students flooded toward buses and cars, Marcus noticed something that made his combat instincts flare. 3 adults in nondescript clothing, positioned at strategic points around the campus. Their positioning was too perfect to be coincidental, their apparent casualness too studied. Lisa, he said quietly. Don't look around, but I think we have a problem. The surveillance team? I noticed them this morning. They're not very good at hiding. You knew about them and didn't mention it? I assumed you'd spotted them too. Military training and all that. Marcus realized he was still underestimating Lisa Park. Her cognitive abilities weren't just about predicting behavior, they included tactical awareness that rivaled his military training. Any idea who they are? Corporate interests, most likely. Several defense contractors would pay significant amounts for access to Project Mirror data. And the easiest way to get that access would be through the project director's daughter. They're here for you. They're here to assess me. Kidnapping a minor on school grounds would be monumentally stupid. But following me home to learn my patterns? That's much more reasonable. Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He'd been assigned to protect Lisa, but it was more than that now. She was his friend, perhaps the only person on Earth who could understand what he'd become. We need to get you somewhere safe. Actually, I think we need to give them what they want. What? Lisa turned to face him, and Marcus saw the predatory smile again. I said I could predict human behavior with 93% accuracy. What I didn't mention is that the remaining 7% is where things get really interesting. As they walked toward the school parking lot, Marcus realized that his quiet life as a returning veteran was about to become significantly more complicated. But, for the first time since he'd come home, he felt like he had a mission again. And Marcus Chen, veteran of the Outer Rim conflicts, had never failed a mission. Lisa's plan was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its implications. As they walked through the school parking lot, she explained her strategy in the same conversational tone she might use to discuss homework. The surveillance team consists of 3 operatives, 2 male, 1 female, positioned at 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 7 o'clock relative to our position. Their equipment suggests corporate intelligence rather than government, probably hired by someone with significant resources but limited official authority. Marcus tracked the position she described while maintaining the casual demeanor of a student heading home. His military training automatically cataloged escape routes, potential weapons, and tactical advantages. How can you be sure they're not government? Government surveillance would be subtler and more comprehensive. These people are competent but not exceptional. They're also making emotional decisions rather than purely tactical ones. Emotional how? The female operative has increased stress indicators, elevated heart rate, micro-expressions indicating anxiety, positioning that prioritizes concealment over tactical advantage. She's either new to fieldwork or personally invested in the outcome. Marcus found himself continuously amazed by Lisa's observational abilities. She read human behavior the way he read combat situations, automatically, comprehensively, with an accuracy that bordered on supernatural. So what's your plan? We give them what they want while ensuring they can't use it against us. They want information about Project Mirror and my cognitive abilities. So we demonstrate those abilities in a way that makes them understand exactly how outmatched they are. They reached Marcus's family car, a modest sedan that his mother had insisted he use for transportation. As he opened the driver's door, Lisa spoke in a voice just loud enough to carry to the surveillance team. The quantum processing matrix my father's team developed is based on recursive neural pathway analysis. The implications for cognitive enhancement are extraordinary. Marcus played along, though he had no idea what she was actually talking about. Sounds complicated. Not really. Human consciousness operates on quantum principles that we're only beginning to understand. When you can map and manipulate those patterns. She paused, looking directly at the female operative who was pretending to check her phone near a blue sedan. Well, the applications are limited only by imagination and moral constraints. They drove in silence for several blocks, Marcus checking mirrors for pursuit while Lisa seemed lost in thought. The surveillance team followed at a discreet distance, professional enough to avoid detection by most civilians but obvious to anyone with military experience. Turn left at the next intersection, Lisa said suddenly. That's not the way to your house. No, it's the way to Sacramento Community College. There's something I need to show you. Marcus made the turn, noting that their followers maintained their distance. Whatever Lisa had planned, she wanted an audience for it. The community college campus was nearly deserted in the late afternoon, most students and faculty having left for the day. Lisa directed Marcus to a parking space near the science building, a modern structure filled with laboratories and lecture halls. My father sometimes uses the facilities here for research that's too sensitive for his main laboratory, Lisa explained as they walked toward the building. Officially, I'm not supposed to have access. Unofficially, I've been helping with cognitive modeling since I was 12. The surveillance team had positioned themselves around the campus perimeter, close enough to observe but far enough to avoid detection by casual observers. Marcus counted at least 5 operatives now, the original 3 plus 2 additional personnel who joined them during the drive. Lisa, whatever you're planning, we're outnumbered. If these people decide to make a move, they won't. Not here, not now. Corporate intelligence operates under different rules than military engagement. They need plausible deniability and legal cover. Kidnapping teenagers from college campuses doesn't provide either. Lisa led him through the science building using security codes that she definitely shouldn't have possessed. The laboratory she brought him to looked like something from a science fiction film, banks of quantum computers, neural interface equipment, and holographic displays showing complex three-dimensional models of brain activity. Welcome to the future of human consciousness, Lisa said, activating the lab's security systems. This is where my father's team tests the theoretical frameworks that could win or lose the war. She moved to one of the computer terminals and began entering commands with practiced efficiency. The holographic displays came to life, showing neural activity patterns that resembled beautiful, complex flowers blooming and dying in endless cycles. These are Zephyrian neural patterns, Lisa explained. Notice the rigid symmetry, the mathematical perfection of the processing cascades. Their thoughts follow quantum mechanical principles with almost no deviation. She entered another command, and the display shifted to show human neural patterns. These were chaotic by comparison, asymmetrical and unpredictable, with sudden bursts of activity that seemed to come from nowhere. And these are human patterns. Messy, inefficient, completely irrational by Zephyrian standards. But notice what happens when we model combat scenarios. The display showed a simulation of Zephyrian and human neural networks processing the same tactical situation. The Zephyrian pattern quickly settled into an optimal solution, beautiful in its mathematical elegance. The human pattern seemed to thrash around randomly before suddenly, producing a solution that was not only different but demonstrably superior. The chaos factor, Marcus breathed. Exactly. Humans don't just think outside the box, we think outside the concept of boxes entirely. Our neural patterns include random quantum fluctuations that introduce genuine unpredictability into our decision-making. The Zephyrians can calculate the optimal response to any human strategy, but they can't predict when we'll suddenly abandon all strategy and do something completely irrational. Lisa's fingers flew over the controls, and the display showed more simulations. Human military units winning impossible battles through tactics that made no rational sense. Individual soldiers surviving situations that should have been certain death by making decisions that defied logical analysis. This is why you survived Proxima Station, Lisa said quietly. When the Zephyrian assault fleet had you completely surrounded, when every tactical manual said you should surrender or retreat, you did something no rational being would attempt. You attacked. Marcus remembered that day vividly. His unit had been cut off, outnumbered 10-1, with no hope of reinforcement. Every logical assessment said they should find cover and wait for extraction. Instead, Marcus had ordered a full frontal assault on the Zephyrian command ship. It had been suicide, except it had worked. How do you know about Proxima Station? Because I modeled it. My father's team has been analyzing every major human victory in the war, looking for patterns. Your assault showed up as a perfect example of chaos factor decision-making. Completely irrational, absolutely effective. The laboratory door chimed, indicating someone had entered the building. Lisa smiled, checking a security display that showed 3 figures moving through the corridors toward their location. Right on schedule, she said. You wanted them to follow us here. Of course. They need to understand what they're dealing with before they make any decisions they might regret. The laboratory door opened, and the 3 original surveillance operatives entered. The female operative was older than Marcus had expected, perhaps 40, with the controlled bearing of someone accustomed to command. The 2 males flanked her in a classic protection formation. Dr. Park's daughter, I presume, the woman said. I'm Sarah Collins, representing certain interested parties who would very much like to discuss your future. How disappointing, Lisa replied. I was hoping for someone more interesting. Corporate intelligence barely qualifies as a challenge. Collins bristled at the dismissal. You're in no position to be dismissive, young lady. We know about your abilities, about Project Mirror, about your father's research. We're prepared to offer you opportunities that the government never could. What kind of opportunities? Resources. Freedom to develop your abilities without military oversight. The chance to work on projects that could revolutionize human consciousness rather than just win wars. Marcus watched the exchange with growing unease. There was something about Collins that didn't fit the corporate intelligence profile. Her positioning was too aggressive, her language too personal. She wasn't just here on business, this was personal. You're not corporate intelligence, he said suddenly. Collins turned her attention to him for the first time. And, you're Marcus Chen, the war hero with psychological monitoring restrictions. Tell me, how does it feel to be neutered? The insult was calculated to provoke a response, and Marcus felt the familiar cold calm settling over him. I wouldn't know. Care to find out how neutered I am? Actually, he won't need to, Lisa interjected smoothly. Because you're about to leave voluntarily. I don't think so. Lisa activated another display, and, suddenly, the room filled with holographic images of the surveillance team, not just the 3 in the room, but all 5 operatives, shown in perfect detail as they'd followed Marcus and Lisa through the day. Sarah Collins, formerly Major Sarah Collins, military intelligence, dishonorably discharged for selling classified information to defense contractors. Current employment with Titan Defense Solutions, a shell company for alien technology acquisition. Marital status, divorced. Financial status, desperate. Psychological profile, narcissistic personality disorder with paranoid tendencies. Collins had gone very still, but Lisa continued relentlessly. Michael Torres, explosive specialist, 3 tours of duty in conventional forces before discharge for excessive violence. Currently facing bankruptcy due to gambling debts. David Kim, no relation to my friend Lieutenant David Kim, former Signals Intelligence, currently under investigation for industrial espionage. How could you possibly know facial recognition, cross-referenced with military databases, financial records, and psychological profiles? Your team's complete operational history analyzed and predicted based on established behavioral patterns. Would you like me to continue with your backup personnel? The holographic display shifted to show the 2 additional operatives positioned outside the building, along with detailed dossiers that made it clear Lisa had identified them as well. The point, Lisa said conversationally, is that human unpredictability works both ways. Yes, our chaos factor makes us impossible for aliens to predict. But it also means that anyone trying to manipulate or control us is playing a game they can't win. Collins's hand moved toward her jacket, and Marcus reacted instinctively. He didn't attack, that would have triggered his monitoring restrictions. Instead, he simply positioned himself between Collins and Lisa while making it clear that any aggressive move would be met with overwhelming response. "I wouldn't," he said quietly. "Because unlike the Zephyrians, I don't need to be rational about protecting my friends." The standoff lasted several seconds before Collins apparently decided that discretion was the better part of valor. She gestured to her team, and they began moving toward the exit. "This isn't over," she said. "Actually, it is," Lisa replied. "Because by tomorrow morning, Titan Defense Solutions will be under federal investigation for attempting to steal classified technology. Your operational funds will be frozen, your personnel will be detained, and you'll be facing charges that could put you away for the rest of your natural life. You can't prove any of that. I don't need to prove it. I just need to predict it. And, Sarah, the probability that you'll escape the consequences of today's actions is approximately 0.03%. Those aren't good odds." After the surveillance team left, Marcus and Lisa sat in the empty laboratory, surrounded by the soft humming of quantum computers and the gentle glow of holographic displays. "How much of what you just told them was true?" Marcus asked. "All of it. I really can predict human behavior with extraordinary accuracy. The question is whether I should." "What do you mean?" "Power corrupts, Marcus. And the power to predict and manipulate human behavior is perhaps the most corrupting of all. Every day I have to choose between using my abilities to get what I want and maintaining some semblance of moral integrity." "What do you want?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment, looking at the neural pattern displays that showed the beautiful chaos of human consciousness. "I want to not be alone anymore," she said finally. "I want to find other people who understand what it's like to carry knowledge that changes how you see the world. I want to use my abilities to help humanity win this war without losing our humanity in the process." Marcus understood. The burden of capability, of being changed by extreme circumstances, of carrying responsibilities that couldn't be shared with the people you were protecting. It was the price paid by soldiers, by veterans, by anyone who stood between civilization and chaos. "You're not alone," he said. "I know. That's why I've been waiting for you to come home." As they prepared to leave the laboratory, Marcus realized that his mission had evolved. He wasn't just protecting Lisa Park from external threats, he was helping her navigate the moral complexities of power, just as she was helping him navigate the complexities of returning to civilian life. Together, they were two young people carrying adult responsibilities, finding strength in their shared understanding of what it meant to be human in an inhuman universe. The war against the Zephyrians continued in distant star systems, but, here on Earth, two veterans of different kinds of battles were learning that sometimes the most important victory was simply finding someone who understood. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in front of Jefferson High School watching federal agents escort Sarah Collins and her team into unmarked vehicles. Lisa had been right about everything. Titan Defense Solutions had been a front for illegal technology acquisition, Collins was facing multiple felony charges, and the investigation had uncovered a network of corporate espionage that reached into several major defense contractors. "Feels good to be right, doesn't it?" Lisa said, joining him on the school steps. "Feels complicated," Marcus replied. "These people were criminals, but they're also humans. And we're in a war where every human life matters." Spoken like a true soldier. Always thinking about the bigger picture. The past 3 weeks had settled into something resembling routine. Marcus had found his place in the social ecosystem of Jefferson High, not quite fitting into any established group, but respected enough to be left alone. Derek Vance had attempted a few more confrontations, but word of Marcus's military service had spread, and even Derek wasn't stupid enough to keep picking fights with someone who'd been professionally trained to kill aliens. More importantly, Marcus and Lisa had formed an unlikely partnership. She helped him navigate the social complexities of civilian life, while he provided her with perspectives on honor, duty, and moral decision-making that her purely analytical mind sometimes struggled to reach independently. "Have you decided what you're going to do after graduation?" Lisa asked as they walked into the building. "College, eventually. Maybe study engineering, see if I can contribute to the war effort in other ways." What about you? I've been accepted to 17 universities with full scholarships. But I think I'm going to stay local for now. My father's work is too important, and someone needs to make sure he doesn't lose sight of the human elements in all his quantum mechanics. They'd reached Marcus's locker when Principal Watson approached with a visitor, an older man in military uniform whose presence made Marcus instinctively straighten to attention. Mr. Chen, this is Colonel Harrison from Colonial Defense Command. He'd like to speak with you. Colonel Harrison was a compact man with iron-gray hair and the calm bearing of someone who'd spent decades making life and death decisions. His uniform bore the insignia of CDC Special Operations, and his eyes held the weight of classified knowledge. "Walk with me, son," the colonel said. They found a quiet corner of the campus, away from the bustle of students changing classes. Lisa had tactfully vanished, though Marcus suspected she was monitoring the situation from a distance. "I'll get straight to the point," Colonel Harrison said. "We have a situation developing in the Tau Ceti system. The Zephyrians are massing for what intelligence suggests will be their final push against human colonial space. If they break through our defensive lines there, they'll have a clear path to Earth." Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Sir, I'm no longer active duty." "No, you're not. But you're also not quite a civilian either. Your service record shows tactical innovations that have been adopted throughout the fleet. Your understanding of human capabilities in extreme situations has proven invaluable. What are you asking me to do?" "I'm asking you to consider reactivation." "Voluntary, of course. But, Marcus, we need people who understand both sides of the equation, the military necessity and the human cost. We need veterans who can bridge the gap between what we must do and who we choose to be." Marcus looked across the campus, watching teenagers his age worry about homework and social drama and college applications. Normal concerns for normal people living normal lives. The life he'd thought he wanted when he'd come home. "What would my role be?" "Strategic consultation initially. Your experiences at Proxima Station and Kepler 442b have provided insights into the chaos factor that our tactical planners are still trying to understand. Eventually, if you choose to accept a commission, we'd want you commanding units comprised of veterans like yourself, soldiers who understand that winning isn't enough if we lose ourselves in the process." The offer was tempting. Marcus had missed the clarity of military life, the sense of purpose that came from being part of something larger than himself. But he'd also learned to value the connections he'd made here, the opportunity to be something other than a soldier. "I need time to think about it." "Of course. But, Marcus, time is a luxury we may not have much longer." After Colonel Harrison left, Marcus found Lisa in the library, ostensibly studying but actually running predictive models on her tablet. She looked up as he approached. "Military reactivation offer?" she asked. "How did you, never mind?" "Yes. Probability calculations suggested it was inevitable. Your tactical innovations have attracted attention at the highest levels of command. The question is whether you'll accept." Marcus sat down across from her, feeling the weight of decision. "What does your analysis suggest I should do?" "My analysis suggests that the decision can't be made analytically. It comes down to what you value most, personal fulfillment or species survival. And that's a choice only you can make." They sat in silence for a few minutes, surrounded by the quiet bustle of students preparing for finals. Normal teenage concerns in a universe where abnormal threats lurked among distant stars. "Lisa, what happens if we lose? If the Zephyrians break through at Tau Ceti? Conventional analysis suggests human civilization would have approximately 18 months before total defeat. But conventional analysis doesn't account for the chaos factor. Humans under extreme pressure become more unpredictable, not less. We might find solutions that no rational assessment would suggest. Or we might just die fighting." "Yes. That's also possible." Marcus's neural interface chimed with an incoming message. The quantum signature was familiar, Sergeant Santos, calling from somewhere in the Vega system. "Shun. Please tell me you're not sitting in some classroom learning about the periodic table while the galaxy burns." Her holographic image appeared with the privacy screen activated. Santos looked tired, older than her years, but her eyes still held the fierce determination that had made her such an effective leader. "Hey, Sarge. Actually, that's exactly what I'm doing." "Well, stop it. We need you out here, Marcus. The Zephyrians have developed new tactics, and they're specifically designed to counter human unpredictability. They're learning to predict our chaos factor." "That's impossible." "That's what we thought. But they've captured some of our tactical databases, analyzed our decision-making patterns over hundreds of engagements. They're starting to anticipate our irrational choices." Lisa had been listening to the conversation, and Marcus saw her face go pale. "Sergeant Santos, this is Lisa Park. I work with Xenobiological Cognitive Systems. Can you describe these new Zephyrian tactics?" "Who the hell is Lisa Park?" "Someone who understands the theoretical basis for the chaos factor better than anyone alive," Marcus said. "What Santos is describing, it's exactly what Dr. Park's team has been working to prevent." Santos looked between them through the holographic display. "You mean there's a way to counter their countermeasures?" "Potentially," Lisa said. "But it would require field testing of cognitive enhancement protocols that have never been tried in combat situations. And it would require someone who understands both the theoretical framework and the practical realities of alien warfare." The implications settled over Marcus like a heavy blanket. They weren't just asking him to return to military service, they were asking him to be part of an experimental program that could either save humanity or destroy the very thing that made humans unique. "What kind of cognitive enhancement?" he asked. "Quantum neural interface technology based on captured Zephyrian systems, but modified for human neural architecture. Enhanced tactical awareness, improved decision-making speed, direct quantum communication with other enhanced soldiers. In other words, turning humans into something closer to Zephyrians." "Superficially, yes. But retaining the core elements of human unpredictability while adding computational power. Think of it as evolution accelerated by technology rather than time." Marcus looked around the library again, at his classmates preparing for their normal futures, at the life he could have if he chose to remain a civilian. Then, he thought about Santos and his other surviving comrades, fighting impossible odds while alien enemies learned to predict human behavior. The choice, when he finally made it, felt inevitable. "When do we start?" 3 months later, Marcus stood on the bridge of the UNS Prometheus, humanity's most advanced starship, watching the Tau Ceti system grow larger in the viewports. His neural interface hummed with enhanced processing power, quantum entangled with the minds of 30 other soldiers who'd volunteered for the cognitive enhancement program. But, beneath the technological augmentation, beneath the tactical improvements and strategic advantages, Marcus remained fundamentally human. The chaos factor hadn't been eliminated, it had been amplified, focused, turned into humanity's ultimate weapon against an enemy that fought in straight lines. Lisa Park was aboard as well, serving as the program's technical coordinator and psychological anchor. Her natural cognitive abilities, combined with the quantum enhancement technology, made her something unprecedented, a human who could think like a Zephyrian while remaining essentially herself. "Contact in 30 minutes, reported the ship's AI. Zephyrian fleet composition consistent with final offensive parameters." Marcus felt the familiar calm settling over him, but now it was shared across the quantum network with his enhanced comrades. 30 minds thinking as one while maintaining individual creativity, unpredictability, and human stubbornness. "Remember," Lisa's voice came through the quantum link, "they've learned to predict individual human behavior. But they've never faced networked human consciousness. Show them what evolution looks like." As the UNS Prometheus and its battle group moved toward the largest fleet engagement in human history, Marcus thought about Jefferson High School, about Derek Vance and homework assignments and the normal life he'd chosen to leave behind. He thought about the bullies, alien and human alike, who believed that superior technology or physical strength or mathematical precision guaranteed victory. They never understood that humans had something more powerful than any of those advantages. Humans had hope. Humans had each other. And humans had the stubborn, irrational, magnificent refusal to surrender even when all logic suggested defeat was inevitable. The Battle of Tau Ceti would be remembered as the turning point in the war, the moment when humanity stopped merely surviving and began to truly thrive among the stars. But, for Marcus Chen, veteran warrior and guardian of human potential, it was simply another day at the office, protecting his people, preserving their future, and proving once again that the most dangerous thing in the universe was a human who refused to give up. The bullies of the galaxy, whether they came from distant stars or high school hallways, were about to learn why humanity was called the Persistence. And they were about to discover that some lessons could only be taught the hard way.